All right, we are live. So first things first, since I have a new version, I do need to find my original file. Can't go to my recent because it's a new version. Technically it's a completely new program. So gonna have to go and find mine. Actually, it might be on my desktop. Nice. Why, yes. Of course, you have to allow permissions, especially if you have a Mac. Never a good idea to have two Rhino windows open. It's very easy to accidentally do that when you're kind of a first-time user. Anyway, from where we started off last time, we ended with obviously making some pieces for the topography. We talked about obviously subtracting and really dialing these in to help with the fabrication, and of course put this thing together like a puzzle, right? So, you know, I went over the topography, I went over maybe unrolling some of these complex surfaces. However, you know, another aspect to this is we can set up other things to print on just normal pieces of paper. That way, say I can line up my basswood to it and just cut it, right? I don't necessarily need everything laser cut. Like for instance, I don't want anybody to laser cut their columns, right? That'd be kind of silly. So, looks like I need to turn on everything, at least from last time. Sweet. Oh, and that's right. It looks like I've even moved my model to where things don't align anymore. So this is really dangerous. I should have had a, and maybe I do, show. I should have a complete model somewhere. You never want to get rid of that complete model, guys, right? Otherwise you end up having to almost kind of do it again. Now I'm just going to fake it till I make it. I think I do have these grouped. Maybe I don't. Maybe I do. Doesn't look like it. So, well, maybe you did this too. So definitely avoid this, guys. But let's put it back together. Of course, I need gumball. And maybe I can get that just right. Obviously, I do have some spots on the ground that maybe indicate. I'm not going to unselect yet. That does look very close. I got really lucky that I only moved it in one plane. So, I don't know. You might not get as lucky, so don't count on that. So, now that I have it together, I'll make a copy. That way I can have one that I can take apart and still have one for reference just in case I mess it up. Sweet. So let's say we unrolled all these surfaces. All right. Could even do them all at the same time, I think. Get those out of the way. I don't know, I like to categorize things. I like to start breaking it down a little easier, things like that. For instance, you know, we got this guy, right? How are we going to make him? Well, I know I can't really laser cut that and make it look real, right? It's also, well, technically something that I could probably either make all the individual pieces for, or even sort of make these pieces, right? Anyway, let's take a look at it, because obviously I can use it as a make 2D. Of course, I don't want the perspective view, so I'm going to go actually to my top view. And I go ahead, and I don't need the hidden lines for this. Go ahead and press apply. And very simply, well, there's a perfect little template, right, for all my pieces. I can essentially line up my basswood in real time if I put this on a piece of paper. Now, that might be the next question. And so this is kind of a review of something that I did in the past that, again, we'll need again for scaling. So, sorry, I like my windows a little bit more space. There we go. Awesome. But yeah, we can see that okay, I think, in the projector. But let's say I wanted this on 11 by 17 paper at the right scale. What do? right? Just as a review, I'm going to go ahead and do this in a different layer. There we go. And go ahead and make a rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and make an 11 by 17, or, actually I could just go ahead and calculate it from here. I really got to do the exact same thing. So all I need to know, guys, is the size of my paper and the scale that I want the object to be at. Since we make everything in this realm 1-to-1 scale, so 48 feet really is 48 feet here in the digital Rhino world, and 3 miles is really 3 miles, of course, in this world, because, well, I can't fit 3 miles on a paper at 1-to-1 scale. It would be hilarious, right? Of course I'll have to change the scale. So keeping that in mind, again, I want to use this method of finding the paper scale first, that way I can print it. So as you guys know, this model needs to be at a 1/8 scale, and I want to put this on, well, at least I want to test some things. Maybe it'll fit on a regular letter size piece of paper. Great. Well, a letter size piece of paper is 8.5 by 11 inches. So I need to go to my calculator. I'm going to go ahead and do 8.5 times 8 in this case, because 8 feet will be in 1 inch of 1/8 scale, right? So that equals 68 feet. So I'm going to type in 68 feet, enter, sweet, and 11. So 11 times 8, which is of course 88, 88 feet, sweet. So this red line now represents my letter size piece of paper for this object inside. That represents my model at 1/8 scale. Does that make sense, guys? Because I know some of us, honestly, you're going to do this so much that it becomes second nature. I could do the same thing for if I wanted on a 24 by 36 piece of paper, 11 by 17, and so on, right? But again, I'm always going to need those two things before I print anyway. So of course, why not work smarter instead of having all these different scaled models in a digital realm? So don't get me wrong, there are people who prefer that method. They have maximum $5,000 desktop computers, and they could fit gigs worth in their Rhino files. I was never one who could do that, and I figured this is smarter anyway, right? It takes up a lot less digital space, and shoot, all I got to do is print that out. So what I would do to print that out is, of course, go to my top view, just because I don't think I've gone over this part either. So I'd go to File, Print, and very similarly, it's just like the laser cutter, right, when we were setting that window. So I do want to make sure it's in the top view. Keep that in mind, your viewport selected is the one that it will show. And in my case, yep, 11 by 8.5. I'm going to go with a Rhino PDF just to kind of show us the resolution of 300 dpi. I can do a vector output, which is like an Illustrator crisp line, or a raster output, which is more like Photoshop and it's very grainy. So obviously I'm going to go with vector. And last but not least, again, that view and output scale, I'm going to select window and change that window. So I need to make sure my endpoint is on, go with perpendicular, intersection, midpoint, my kind of go-tos. And I need to get that boundary box, hit enter, and voila, I now have a perfect scale drawing that when I hit print, of course it's going to, on the Mac side, it's going to make me save it. I save it to my desktop. I can even open this PDF in Illustrator, right? Or I can even do this whole process in Illustrator if you find that to be easier. I don't know about you, but maybe printing yellow lines isn't the way to go. Clearly, I can even use this rectangle to help me in Illustrator with my artboard, right? And setting my artboards up. So I think that it's kind of self-explanatory. I know this visual doesn't probably give it a lot of justice, but clearly if we have this in a piece of paper form, I can just line up my basswood and cut as necessary, right? I could even draw some more stuff. Like I was saying earlier, I don't know, maybe I might be giving this to my little brother and I want to make sure that he gets it. So I'm going to even make like the little cut lines for him. I might put a little scissors to tell him. I might even have to make a little diagram, right, for myself, because I know this project is very complex, or maybe I'm working in a team right? And I need 3 people to actually work for me or start to make that model while I do the drawings. So anyway, obviously there's a lot of potential to this. However, it doesn't stop there in terms of, this was just our beams, right? So we could do that for our columns as well. So like I was saying, I might have different length columns everywhere. So let's check those out. Another reason why I like making a copy is, well, I know which pieces I've made so far and which pieces I haven't too. So I can basically kind of eliminate, which is what I'm doing here, right? How I take these pieces out of this copied model. So anyway, I should probably be more organized. I'm a little OC about organization, as you can tell. I don't know. So now I got those pieces, now I got this piece set up, now I've got those set up. So again, as we know, Make 2D kind of puts everything in the center. So I don't know. Again, I like to keep organized, that way I know I got all the pieces, or delete stuff that I know I already got to. But yeah, for instance, we've already got, the images of this, so arguably you don't really need these anymore. I could always reproduce them again if needed anyway. But yeah, they're right there. So, I don't know. I like to be organized, and it's really good practice, guys, especially as you guys know, this can get very complex. Anyway, the next piece, columns. My goodness, if I have these all nice and organized, I can simply just turn them on and off. So, of course, turn everything else off except these columns. Awesome. Of course, I have some more pieces in there, unfortunately. I'll just get rid of those. And now I have all my columns to understand. Now, I may need to put them in a better spot, and after all, I did kind of try 2 different columns. Let's face it, I don't expect anybody to make this out of basswood unless they really want to try. I could go over how you would make that out of basswood, but honestly, it would be a completely analog process. Either that or you'd stack a bunch of plus signs from a laser cutter, which would also look just kind of funky and ugly. So, I don't know, I guess I could cut a basswood piece in half and glue it to another basswood piece. But again, that's all analog. I wouldn't really need the digital realm for that. So really what I would need the digital realm for is really all the different links that I maybe have. So I'm going to actually make some different ones just to kind of, again, for the sake of tutorial. And let's face it, you may have, a lot more different than, of course, mine. So let's say we have all these different pieces. What I'm going to do is line them up in view to where I can see them. So basically I want to make it to where I can make 2D, but not necessarily from the top, right? We've been mostly doing Make 2D from the top, but we can also do Make 2D from anywhere, right? So again, why work harder when I can work smarter? So of course, those are the ones I'm looking at, and that's the view that I probably want. So I'm going to go ahead and get them outside of everything else and make sure that they're not overlapping, right, like they are now. So again, just kind of, I could get more organized with this, but as long as they're not, I've got all the pieces, that's good, right? Why not? That's enough for me. I could definitely still line up all my basswood pieces to this. So again, I'm going to make 2D. Oh man, I got the wrong spot. Anyway, edit, undo. I need, of course, my right view. So, make 2D. Not make 2D, make 2D. Apply. Of course, it should show up in my top view, but if your make 2D lines aren't on, then of course it doesn't show up. Where'd it go? It's funny, usually you guys find it faster than I do. But when in doubt, I just make it again anyway. It looks like I did the top view again, but it could be because my Make 2D is set to that, so. There we go. Where are my columns? Panic. Nah. Ah, there they go. Dang, where'd my columns go? And see, this is exactly what I mean by trying to stay organized. But that's what I get for doing every single part of the assignment in one project. Again, maybe just a learning example. Oh, there's another part of my model. What happened to my columns? When in doubt, edit undo. There we go. I accidentally deleted them. What was I thinking? See? The power of the digital realm. In the analog world, they would have been gone forever. Anyway, glad that we got that solved. Let's go ahead and turn this layer back off and try make 2D again. Of course, I know what it is, and it's because I have it set to perspective view when I need to be in the right view, not the wrong view. Anyway, there it is. So that's great. However, it's at true scale, so again, could I just put it on my 1/8 scale paper? Is that right? Could I just make a copy of this, guys? Is the paper space the same? Oh my gosh, look how faster that is. Right, of course, once I calculate it once, I don't have to do it again. Right? Now, obviously, if I want to change the paper, I do. But that would be enough information. I would be confused there because I accidentally maybe didn't get one of the pieces out of the way. Or I could even move it, right? But again, obviously I should make 2D a better situation. But what's interesting though, is that now that I've made the model at 1:1 scale, guys, right? I only have to do that scale method of the paper once, right? I can really use the same paper over and over again. And now I have 2 sheets of paper that are going to help me both with the beams and now the columns, right? Again, I just line up my basswood, size it up, cut it, I've got a piece, I'm ready to go. Again, now don't get me wrong, you're going to know your model better than anybody else. If they do happen to all be different, I would probably label this one A, this one B, this one C, right? Of course, if they're all different, again, furthering helping you with its complexity. Does that make sense, guys? Hopefully so. What I'm trying to say is there's not really any like rules to this program, so we get to write the rules for it. We get to use it the way that might be best. So anyway, I like it. Last but not least, I do want to talk about the stairs, right? How are we going to make those guys? We've got the topography, we've got the objects, we've got, and honestly, for the sake of this model, guys, no rails or handrails are needed, right? You're welcome to try, but please don't actually, you know. I had one student try and it was pretty bad. Anyway, you don't have to model the rails. We do need them, of course, for the digital model so that we can, you know, beautifully show them in drawings. But I don't expect you to make these tiny little handrails or anything like that. So for the sake of the model, we could even get rid of that part so I can ungroup it, right? And if that helps you out, of course, that's after you've made a copy of it, right? Don't delete anything. Might be a good idea to just have a backup Rhino file with all this too, right? Because we know how many hours we really spend on this, guys. I could always just turn the layer off too. So again, the power of being organized. Anyway, I want these stairs, I want to make them a little easier, a little bit more effectively. However, right now they're kind of a bunch of parts, right? At least in the way that they were made. So I might have to do it one at a time. I might realize that, well, some of my stairs, I know that I copied certain sections of those pieces, right? So again, I can use it literally for the laser cutter, or a little bit of both, kind of a hybrid situation here. So I'm going to take this one, and again, I'm literally going to take this one. That way I know that I've already made that one, right? And so on and so forth. So again, this is why I'm kind of doing one at a time. That way I know that I have all the pieces I need. Anyway, So let's take a look at this one. Let's unroll it first, because it is a solid object. It is worth a shot, even though this is going to be laughable. It's not going to do those little toe kicks. But let's try. I mean, it's worth a shot. Unroll surface. I'm not going to explode, just to kind of see what it does. Keep properties. Holy crap. It's like a... Yeah, that's not going to work. It's not going to work at all on the laser cutter. However, I do see some pieces that might make it easier. Right, like that profile piece, shoot, I don't want to cut that out. I want the laser cutter to. And then maybe, well, the rectangles, that's actually pretty easy. I know a basswood piece that is 1/4. You guys all have basswood that's 1/4, right? I mean, and pretty thin. I could just cut out a little bunch of those and glue them actually to this perfect profile. Let's test that out, because I think that might be easiest, at least for this very stair. So yeah, obviously the unroll method might not work, and let's face it, it might be chaos anyway. So let's take advantage of it and make 2D it. Of not my perspective view, but of course, I think it's actually going to be my front view. Did I nail it, or did I nail it? So yeah, I got some more stuff that I don't really need, and it seems to be at a certain angle. Right, so it's actually slightly off. That's okay, because now I get to show you how to orient something perfectly. So let's take a look at it. Yeah, it's definitely not straight. So I need to draw a line that is. Sweet. I basically just need to move this to really any point. Doesn't really matter in this case. Lock it onto there. Rotate. Take that base point that we established. Other point, and lock it on. Now we should get a much better make 2D of this piece. So make 2D. Front view, please. And that's probably a much more accurate profile. But yeah, I'm not gonna laser cut. I'm not gonna make that by hand. So of course I would get that one ready for the laser cutter. And for the laser cutter, well, the size piece of paper we need is not a letter size. However, I'm pretty sure I made, oh, yeah, nope, wait, did I? Yeah, I did. I made some paper right for that. And I say paper because, well, the laser cutter really is a printer. So I still kind of call it paper space. But as you can see, on, let's say, my 1x2 ply chipboard, maybe it's not paper anymore. Actually, chipboard is paper. That's kind of funny. Anyway, it still is paper, right? But nicely enough, I get to know that I can fit quite a few profiles on here. And in fact, I might realize, well, I know I have 2 of those per stair, right? And I actually have 6 stairs to deal with. So, you know, I'm going to do a couple of those. Now, for the laser cutter, I know we haven't had this conversation yet, but honestly, the laser cutter can get this close, guys. And this is what I meant by good material use. Alright, now look how much material I'm using up instead of that much material. In fact, I don't want to do that all over again. So I'm just going to make copies. Again, the power of the copy. Wow, what a difference in amount of space that I use. See what I'm saying? And obviously that came with good practice. Right? Realizing that I forget the word. It's not coagulate. It's not fold. Anyway, the word will come to me. But easily enough, that's great. You know, I can send that to the laser cutter, but you know, Professor, I do need all the stair pieces, and I do want to make sure that I get each piece correct. Awesome. So let's get the other part. That part. Right? So make 2D. And really I can kind of calculate this. I guess I don't need make 2D in this situation. Really, I already understand that I made the width of my stairs 4 feet. I made all treads 12 inches, so I guess I don't need a whole lot of information. However, I don't know. Look at this. So I can just take one of those, just take a rectangle, take that one. And again, I hope you guys see that I'm using the model and what I've done to actually make something else, right? There wasn't this sort of one-click button where it was just going to make it all ready for the laser cutter for me, right? I really have to use some critical thought about what I've done digitally versus sort of what I have to do in reality. But technically I could laser cut this. I do need to know how many I need and the number. However, keep in mind that the laser cutter, it's going to follow the path of this line. So for instance, to have perfect, efficiency of material use, I could, and the efficiency of the laser cutter, all right, I'm going to go ahead and copy this and make a second step. And yes, you can put that line on the same line. The laser cutter is going to get that exact line. However, it's going to start to burn each of these. Anyway, however, you'll notice that this line is cutting twice, right? That's a no-no for the laser cutter. So what I would have to do is explode and get rid of one of those lines. But as you can see, that same line is going to cut out the same piece for that other. Does that make sense, guys? So what I'm trying to say is, well, I'll join these, and to have absolute 100% efficiency of both material and laser cutter usage, I'm not doubling up my lines. Oh, but I can make a mistake, so be careful. Okay. That obviously wouldn't make a rectangle. However, those 5 will. Does that make sense, guys? Even though the laser cutter is only going to run that once. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, obviously I don't want to do that over and over and over again, so I'll just take those and cut out as many as I need. However, I may decide I want to cut these out of basswood. After all, I get them in long strips already at this size. So I might not need this. However, I know not everybody has rectangular stairs. They may have triangle stairs. They may have oblong stairs. So again, I kind of want to mix and match for both. But clearly I could either even use this for the laser cutter. I might even print out both just in case. Right? Why not? I may need this little, and this is what I mean. How many of you guys, like when you're making models in D1 or D2, you had to draw the plans first, and then you measure the material onto the plan, and you kind of get it. That's how you made your cuts. You didn't sit there with a scale the whole time and maybe you did, at least to maybe verify. But this is our verifying. This is our scale. This is our tool, right? Now all in one compassing sheet, right, to where we can just print it out, right, and use it to the best of its ability. The same thing could be said about the laser cutter, except it makes more tangible materials. It does the X-Acto cutting for us. So obviously we can use those to our advantage. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. Let's go ahead and review. We went over the paper scale method again. We went over obviously getting a copy of your finished model. That way you can prepare it to get ready for fabrication. We went over obviously unrolling. We went over make 2D, lofting, slicing those pieces out, columns and their links. We went over beams and their links. We went over at least one method or two to go over the stairs, and of course we learned that yes, you do not have to make the handrails. Yeah, in terms of fabrication, I would say that is a great foundation, a good start to making models. And again, obviously I love teaching this part because I think this is extremely helpful in studio, and I've even heard it, personal testimony from my students or the ones that go on to UTSA and whatnot. Because maybe something I forgot to mention, guys, these models, you never want them to look like they were made by a machine. You want them to look like they were handcrafted. So very often, if I use a laser cutter for that basswood, you better believe I'm sitting there with a little bit of the sander before I poke them out of the sheet even, right? I'll sand the full piece and then push them out or cut them out really nicely. As you guys know, a real good physical model can take anywhere from 40 to 60 hours, right? Hopefully this program can set you up to reduce that by half. Doesn't mean the quality changes, right? It still means we got to sand some stuff, right? But now the time is no longer on sitting there measuring, or even I don't know about you guys, but my eyesight's awful. When I make models, I have to have those stupid magnifying glasses, right? So I can see stupid little things like stairs and stuff like that. So for me, this program, it found that accuracy for me. And again, I hope that makes sense. Any questions before I close this recording, guys? When we head off to spring break? Any at all? You won't see me for a week, so keep in mind, I will probably check my canvas. You can always reach out to me. Always give me a screenshot. You can even ask a question on Miro. I probably won't check it that often, but I'll probably do some grading Wednesday. So, or text me if I'm just, sitting in my hammock. Honestly, I plan to sit in my hammock and just relax the entire week. Maybe get some grading done. So, anyway, if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will end this one.